Hello, welcome back to the Prestige TV podcast feed. I'm Joanna Robinson.
I'm Rob Mahoney.
We're in a new studio, Rob.
We sure are.
Oh my gosh, we're here to talk about the Pitt. It's 2 o'clock, episode 8. How's everyone doing at 2 o'clock in the Pitt?
Honestly, better adjusted than I thought they would be.
Oh, okay. Not as much chaos as you thought.
Well, there is chaos and there are triplicates and some of them are being used correctly, but there's still time to have like, what am I doing with my career conversations, which I didn't think we'd be having this week.
Can I say that with love and respect to everyone who's doing their best, felt tip pen usage is demented at the best of times, let alone when you're working in triplicate. So
why? The amount of smearing that would be going on any paperwork, even if it's just a Post-it at the nurse's station.
Not to mention like what you get on. No, it's a no for me. Okay. Nope. If you would like to see our new studio, which we will maybe not always be in, but sometimes be in, you can watch us on YouTube, on Spotify. Where else can people see our beautiful new studio, Rob Mahoney?
They can see glimmers of our studio.
Yeah, glimmers.
On Instagram at Prestige TV Pod. Also on TikTok at Prestige TV Pod.
Correct.
Are there any other platforms you want to launch today?
I think that'll do.
Okay.
Did you like this episode of television?
I sure did.
Yeah?
I mean, this is the Pitt being the Pitt. I think we really ratcheted things up with the chaos of, the tech shutdown. Forced doctors to be resourceful in ways that are always exciting. Got some pairings we haven't really seen a lot of this season. And I don't know, it just hit enough of the Pitt notes expected and unexpected for me to be completely dialed in. How about you?
I have a theory.
What's that?
A reason you really like this episode is because I get to congratulate you on calling Measle Mom as the case against Mel King. I think you did that in episode 1. Like,
I think I did.
From the very beginning. You were always so nice to me if I call a shot early. You called that so early.
It's very kind of you.
You nailed it. You crushed it.
There is no doubt in my mind that the malpractice suit is Measle Mom. Like, it has to be her, right?
Oh my God. Measle Mom.
I feel so sure of it.
How did it feel?
I will feel better when she is on screen.
Okay.
But the measle has landed. Like, we are here.
Did you make any kind of noise when that happened?
I did. I did a fist pump on my couch.
Yeah.
I did. I was very excited. The alarms were blaring in my head. I mean, what else could it be? The spinal taps, they demand litigation.
Oh, do they?
It turns out.
Okay. Dr. Ellis, it turns out we were slightly mistaken. We thought Dr. Ellis was here for a double shift, but she said deposition.
Yes.
So she did her deposition.
That was wishful thinking on our part.
It really was. It really was. We are going to get to mailbag. I just want to say, in terms of like our mailbag this week, we heard from the legal community once again. We've been hearing from them all season. Just once again, they want to reiterate July 4th, not a good day for a deposition. Probably not happening. And one of the lawyers who wrote in said, especially not in the afternoon.
Sure.
That like Mel would have been in like first thing in the morning to sort of do her deposition. So something to think about. What did you make of like too brief time with Dr. Ellis inside of this episode? I feel like she should have stayed around to help with the chaos. But I don't know if we'll see her again. What'd you make of her scene here with Mel?
Loved it. Yeah. I mean, for one, just getting a moment of clarity for Mel of hopefully exactly what she needs to hear.
She's really going through it. Like,
she is.
I picked Mel King as my ideal doctor to see me in the Pit, but I don't know if I would pick her today.
It's not her best day.
She's quite distracted.
Not her most confident day. And we even see, I think, later in this episode, I would say overall, the theme of this entire episode to me is all about patient communication. Like, what are you articulating and how to patients? And one of the moments that caught my eye is when Mel alerts this woman who may be going blind in one eye that what she has going on is sometimes called an eye stroke. Yeah. And you see like the side eye that Samira Mohan gives Mel in that moment. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, that is a word you do not say in this room at this moment when this woman is kind of freaking out.
It's something that like we've seen Javadi do or Whitaker do or maybe Santos do, but that's not usually an error a blunder that Mel makes.
Yes.
So this is just, she's really going through it today.
She really is. And hopefully after having this conversation with Ellis, maybe some of her fears will be quelled, but it's like, from Ellis's perspective, I think she hits all of the important notes, which is this is a completely needless lawsuit. This is not your fault. You, my perfect sweet summer child, did a great job.
Wow.
Just like Robbie has told her.
Okay.
I don't know. Mel did not look particularly reassured afterwards, but I guess we'll see where she is next week.
Inside of this episode, this is a friendship test for you, Rob. Inside of this episode lurks something that I would call one of my most feared enemies of my early 20s. Do you care to guess one of my most hated enemies inside of this episode?
Is it biting your tongue off?
No.
What would you actually be afraid of in your early 20s? I mean, randomly going blind is pretty terrifying. I don't think that's it for you. What else is really in play that would be so terrifying? Is it that? Is it the going blind?
That's such a nice guess. You understandably were thinking about medical cases. The answer is a fax machine. I lived in New York and worked as a temp in various fast-paced financial offices where I had no business being in my early 20s. I was completely bewildered. And just something that the children who work here at the Pitt and the children out there in the universe don't know is that when you were an office temp in the 80s and 90s, I guess, early aughts, that was me, there was a different fax machine at every single office you went through that had different combinations of buttons. So if you're afraid to ask for help, if you are bewildered by the fax machine and afraid to admit that you don't know how to use it, you're just sort of is this one paper up, face down? What combo buttons? I was just when the fax machine came out and you heard the sound of the fax machine, I the comedy of the young people in this show not knowing what it was or that it still existed, fine. But it struck terror in my heart, honestly.
They are terrifying in their way. Every time I have attempted in my then very young age to use a fax machine, ended disastrously. Could not figure it out. Could not make heads or tails. I did think the single most believable moment in The Pitt, which is quite a believable show most of the time, was the enthusiasm with which Dr. Abbott got to say, that is a fax machine.
Yeah.
He absolutely would. He'd be so psyched to be able to tell young people about a fax machine.
But also Joy saying the 1900s, right? Which is something that I've heard Gen Alpha say in a way to try to wound.
It's a good bit.
Wound
now,
those out here.
The whole Back to the Future Titanic.
Yeah.
Not the best written moment in the Pitt history.
That's okay. But Langdon was doing, physical comedy. So that's something for us. All right, mailbag time. drsibangs@gmail.com, PrestigeTV at Spotify.com if folks want to reach us.
Of course.
The Pitt has been very fruitful in terms of listener feedback. Let's start with Christina, who wanted to let us know about Javadi potentially going into dermatology. And Christina said that in terms of residency competitiveness, dermatology along with radiology, ophthalmology, and anesthesia, shout out my dad, my uncle, are the most competitive because they are the cushiest, the high paying. My uncle used to do Sudoku at work when he was an anesthesiologist. So
you can have your nice career and your 4th of July barbecue too.
That's true. Exactly. So very competitive. And also you have to start early. So the fact that Victoria's dad was like, hey, have you considered dermatology? The person who wrote in about this, Christina, was like, that's preposterous. She would have been planning for dermatology for years in advance if that's what she wanted to do.
Well, in pure show construction, based on what we know of Javadi's mom in particular, she has been funneled toward medical specialties probably since the first time she picked up a rattle. The idea
towards surgery,
right? Towards surgery specifically for her mom, but the idea that this would be the first time her dad is even broaching the idea of dermatology, even for him, I don't believe that to be true. But it's got to happen on shift, or else it didn't canonically happen.
Didn't really happen at all. Okay, our listener Evan wrote in. This goes back to your question about Dr. Robbie slicing that woman's leg open. Evan wrote in with a topical Olympics-themed email to say Lindsey Vonn almost lost her leg per The Athletic today. The doctor that saved her leg did the same thing Dr. Robbie did with the woman that unfortunately did lose her leg. Quoting Miss Vonn, quote, he cut open both sides of my leg, kind of filleted it open, so to speak, to let it breathe. I gasped when I read the article. Cheers to the Pitt. How do you feel about it?
See, I don't think that's exactly what Dr. Robbie did. I think what Robbie did was, I'm going to slice this open to prove my point.
Yeah.
Not because this medically needs to happen right now. It's look what's inside more than it is an active measure of treatment.
I don't know what it means to make a leg breathe, but...
Well, to me, it reminds me of last season.
Yeah.
The burn victim farmer who Whitaker has now become the surrogate substitute for.
Correct.
They were slicing into to relieve some of the internal pressure and swelling.
Right.
That sounds a lot more like Lindsey Vonn's case to me.
Okay, so you're still out on Robbie having sliced this woman's now non-existent leg.
I'm mixed out on that. I am out on doing elaborate ski jumps on blown ACLs. Don't do that.
I think we all agree on that about that. All right. Jacob wrote in with a very sensible question, which is this. If Westbridge, which is the hospital that went down earlier in the day, if Westbridge loses access to their digital system and can't see patients, but the Pitt loses access voluntarily and can, does that make sense? The Pitt can still handle the patients that Westbridge can't take, but both of them have their systems down. Do we understand why that would work?
We don't.
Okay.
The doctors there just, they're soft. They're not they're not ready for this. They're not of this life.
They haven't been through what the Pitt's been through. All right. Nope. Several people wrote in to let us know in terms of your condiment hoarding habit, perhaps. Do we want to call it that?
It's mild.
Okay.
I want to be very clear about this. It's select condiments only. It's as a needs case basis.
Okay, in the container, the container store special container that you bought to house them, how deep into that container is the pile of condiment packet?
Well, they settle at the bottom, so it's necessarily
is it like one
quite
packet?
Deep. It's more the little plastic containers than it is the packets. I'm rarely saving a packet because most of what you will find in a packet can be replaced.
A little ramekin of something.
No, not a ramekin. Like, again, it's like a little dipping sauce container of a kind.
That's what I meant. Like a little plastic. Yeah. Okay. All right. Anyway, if you don't...
Deeper than it should be is the answer, but still.
If you don't... One can request in delivery no utensils, no napkins, no condiments. And a bunch of people recommended
I often do.
Yeah.
My problem, if I can, if we can just get through it.
Oh, please.
Top to bottom today.
Please.
I will request that for the plasticware. I don't need it. I'm eating at home. Don't even worry about it. But I do need 5 sauces because the same part of me that wants to pack 3 days worth of extra clothes on every trip also wants to make sure that I am appropriately sauced. So that's how you end up in my situation with my just general deal, Joe. I'm sorry.
You're a very special person.
Thank you.
I want to look at the camera for this one. It's a Gaelic, right?
You did it.
I did it. How I pronounced last time, I chose not to go back and listen to it. Here's what I know. I was very nervous to mispronounce Tamal, which I might have just mispronounced. I blacked out. Did not pronounce a word correctly. Never happened before on a podcast. Will never happen again.
Never.
A lot of people had a lot of thoughts about it. So I just thought that I would correct that.
It's an occupational hazard. I'm proud of you.
Thank you so much. And then last but not least, we got several responses to the email I read about Langdon's recovery program.
Oh, we sure did.
Yeah. And so something I just want to quote from that email that I read last week that I did not include, which is that person wrote, every recovery journey is different. And a lot of people wrote in to say, hey, man, talking about speed running recovery is a deterrent for some people, et cetera, et cetera. So the point is there's no one way to do this. Our emailer last week knew that I just did him a disservice by not including that part in talking about it. But that's just something I would never want to deter someone from getting the help that they need, obviously. Yeah. And so that is something I want to say.
I think there are a lot of right paths. There are a lot of right answers. Again, the way Langdon is going about it, not just in the speed running, but what it actually means to make amends and apologize to people and the process, I still find a little wonky.
Yeah.
I'm not even out so much as does this guy know what he is trying to accomplish? Because there are times where it doesn't seem to be so.
What do you feel like he was trying to accomplish with Santos inside of this episode?
I think this was breaking the ice a little bit, right? Santos has been ducking him all day, even more aggressively than Robbie, I would say. Right. And so this was his opportunity to just get in a room, let's thaw this out just a little bit. And I think we saw very quickly, not only, in that room, there's going to be lots of elephants in it anytime Langdon is involved. We saw earlier this season, Whitaker jump at, almost reflexively jump at requesting the meds so that Langdon wouldn't do it.
Right.
That's kind of one thing. And then there's Santos being let's get a blood alcohol level check. Oh, rehab?
Care to guess?
Yeah, it's a good idea. Let's investigate that. It's clearly so different and so pointed with her, and they just have so much more to resolve.
Absolutely. And I don't begrudge her resentments. Is she communicating them in the most healthy way possible? No. I understand also that I am very much in the bag for this Langdon's character archetype, which is someone who's on a recovery arc. You know, not just substance recovery, but someone who's on a character arc that's trending from a problem towards redemption. Or redemptive arc is actually the more economical way to say that. And so this is my favorite kind of archetype. And so I tend to be very soft and forgiving on those characters because I like watching that story. But for folks at home, and we did get some emails about this who are Joanna, Langdon is not, don't let him off the hook so easy. That's what Rob's here for. Rob's here to hold Langdon's feet to the fire, and I'm here to forgive him too readily, too fast.
Well, and to your point about seeing this as that sort of arc, the initial steps are almost always some version of this, which is a little clumsy. You can see the intent of wanting to do some version of the right thing. And also the ways in which those characters go about it are often wrong or blundering, or they're misreading a situation, or they're trying to do too much too fast, like Langdon is here.
Right.
And so like that's all part of the journey. It's just like about the follow through and what he learns from it. And that's, I think, what we haven't necessarily seen from Langdon yet is all of these weird false starts of conversations that people don't want to have. What is he taking away from that other than not this time, but that next time the helicopter shows up, I'm sure it'll work.
Tomorrow, but Robbie will already be gone.
He will be gone.
Okay, we're already talking about the episode. I told you we were going to start in one place, and then I zagged and made you start with Langdon. But let's wrap up this sort of like Langdon, Joy, Santos section. We got a really great email about this because no matter what, Santos was going to be prickly, to use a word,
as she always is.
As she always is. But if Langdon ever came back, she was going to be prickly about it. No matter what, he was going to be feeling sort of like raw and uncomfortable about it. But this idea that like both of them are on the back foot because they were both rattled quite recently inside of this day by their superiors. So this is what our listener Tim wrote in to say, Dr. Al-Hashimi has completely deflated Dr. Santos with one offhand comment about completing R2 due to slow charting. On the other hand, Dr. Robbie has inflated Whitaker with confidence with a good catch and double fist bump. Dr. Robbie shook Dr. Langdon with 3 seconds saying, I don't know if I want you in my ER on the rooftop. In the rooftop confidential scene, and the same pumped up Mel King back with like, you're one of the best, right? So the point of Tim's email was the tremendous impact your Al-Hashimis and your Robbies and your Abbotts, these leaders can have. Tim was writing because he's a teacher, and he was just sort of like, the way in which you can just sort of like completely deflate a person who's looking up to you versus inflate them and sort of stuff. So I want to give Robbie, I am quick to be critical of Robbie when I see him being harder on some of his female staff members. But I will say with Santos and with Mel King in recent episodes, and this was an excellent Dr. Robbie episode, because we'll talk about the Howard case, but that is perfect place for him to shine, right? But I want to make sure I give him credit for when he does stuff like that. But the idea that both Langdon and Santos were just sort of shook to their core, and then you put them in a room together when they already have, a fraught history, just a recipe for Joy to be doing the looking back and forth, gifable reaction. What do you think?
It's a little combustible for sure. But look, there's unquestionably truth in the idea of anyone you look up to in any walk of life. The smallest gesture from them can mean a lot. The smallest comment that's a criticism can completely tear you down.
Right.
Just a real thing that I think everybody goes through. What's interesting about Robbie is I feel like he's very deliberate about the praise, right? It's when good things come up, when Whitaker has a break in the case, when Mel is expressing some doubt, he's so thoughtful about how he is expressing affirmation in those moments. When the bad stuff comes, it's emotional and lashing out. And it's coming from a place of I am not dealing with my shit, and thus you must deal with my shit.
I feel dysregulated, so
absolutely. And I think Dr. Al-Hashimi is a different case where her comportment with Santos is she's saying a lot of the right things, but in the wrong order. And so coming out of the gate with, you don't want to flunk this year and have to repeat it, and then circling back with some of the affirmation that she maybe needed all along. It's if those exchanges had just happened in a different order, it would feel completely different.
Right,
but they happened in the way they did. And Santos has been kind of in a tailspin for hours as a result.
You had mentioned to me before I'd watched this episode, you watched it before I did, and you were like, there is a chance to talk about hot doctors once again. So here's a couple things I want to say. Number one, thank you to all of our listeners and strangers on the internet who got excited about our hot doctor moments from the pit. I do want to do a listener suggestion list, but I don't want to do it this week, maybe next week. But I just want to give people the opportunity to write in. We've been getting suggestions in the TikTok comments and the Instagram comments, drsidebangs@gmail.com. But we were going to do what's the listener version of this list. The leader right now seems to be season 1, Dr. Abbott donating blood while saving lives, at the same time.
Well, you guys in general, absolutely feral for Dr. Abbott. And we support you. I mean, freak responsibly, please. But man, the response has been overwhelming.
How does one freak irresponsibly?
You don't even want to know.
Okay, great.
Trust me, the information regarding these ships is already out there. If you deign to go looking for it.
Okay. You told me that there would be an opportunity to talk about hot doctors once again, contextually inside of this episode.
Yep.
I assume you were talking about Jaquie and Dr. Langdon. Is that what you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, her doctor's fucking hot. I don't know if you heard. Although not to also make amendments to your list, but I was curious in the spirit of the things that you put on the list, Dr. Ellis like comforting Mel in the way that she did of like, this is not a conversation, this is a monologue. I mean, it's hit a lot of the similar notes, I will say.
I would say the number one, and we don't need to make this a recurring bit, but I would say the number one moment in this episode would be Dana chewing out a cop on the phone.
Oh, sure.
That really did it for
me.
The
AAvfx returned to your body.
Absolutely flooded back in. On the Joy front inside of this storyline with Jaquie with a CK and Jaquie with a Q. What I really loved when Langdon is trying to teach her while Santos is like sneering at him, when he asked her about, something about tying off a suture or whatever, I believe she repeated the lesson that Donnie had like just taught her a couple hours ago. And I just like really liked that.
That's a great catch.
Immediate callback. Also, Joy rising.
Oh my God, what a Joy episode.
Eidetic memory from Joy. Incredible. Save the day. You were right to call out that Whitaker would not be the guy to get the board. It seems like you got a blurry photo and also a selfie. I don't know how you, like, I understand how one could accidentally take a number of selfies.
Yes.
But the fact that he got the board and then somehow turned, like, flipped the camera to get a selfie.
Well, I thought it was reversed. I thought he clearly had been taking a selfie previously, accidentally got a blurry selfie of himself, then got a blurry photo of the board. Accomplished nothing.
Do you think he sent that selfie to his farm wife?
I really hope not.
Okay, tough.
I really hope there isn't like a Whitaker thirst trap of him in the break room when no one was in there for the farm wife. Amy? Yes.
It's Amy. Yeah, well, I guess we don't need to call her farm wife.
I mean, we
still
do can.
Okay. Anything else you want to say about Joy? Joy rising is what I would like to say.
I will say this. We missed this last week, and it was flagged to us by a listener named Steve with the screenshot of, as it's being announced that we're shutting all down the system, all the technology. Everyone is understandably looking panicked and harried down the line. And then you see Joy looking like it's the happiest day of her life somehow. Just like the sick joy on her face.
I love her.
I mean, I appreciate her more by the episode. I'm so glad she finally had just like more to do and more involvement. And this is maybe her best episode yet.
As Ogilvie reaches like new levels of villainy inside of the show, cartoonish villainy. I really don't think anyone is this terrible of a person, but we can discuss. Let's go back to the very beginning of this episode. The Robbie handoff, what resentment he feels to Dr. Al-Hashimi for not being given warning, not being called into that meeting. How did you anticipated he would not handle it well? How did you feel like he handled it?
I was actually glad they even had this exchange at all, because this felt like the kind of thing you would get a reaction shot of Robbie and then would stew for 3 hours and then they would talk about it. So even the fact that it's out in the open by Dr. Robbie standards, that's a win.
Healthy communication, Rob says.
At least straightforward communication.
I will say later in the episode when she's talking about doing Brooke and Wendy, who and the sudden onset of blindness that you talked about, she's talking about doing an experimental sort of procedure, and he's second guessing her. He of slicing legs open is second guessing her. He's like, "There's only room for one cowboy, 2 if my boyfriend Abbott is here, not 3.
This town ain't big enough for the 2 of us."
Exactly. But he gives her a very snide like, "Whatever, you're a patient. I won't be here for the fallout," which Princess like snickers at. Like she really enjoyed it. But I was just like, Robbie, shouldn't you be excited about
it's true.
Like these experimental procedures? You love this shit.
I mean, it's a huge moment for Dr. Al-Hashimi. Again, she of like, I've never been named in a lawsuit, and she's willing to go to this like dramatic length with a real risk of something happening with this blood clot medication in order to best suit the urgency of the moment. And again, it's just like there's so many little things in this episode in terms of how the doctors are responding to their patients that I think work really well or really poorly, depending on how they're framed. Dr. Al-Hashimi somehow pulls together an infographic in real time while all the technology is down. I don't know where that came from, but it's a good way to represent like there's a real chance that this either does nothing or you end up worse for it, or like you could die just from trying to repair your vision in one eye. And at the same time, she herself is kind of putting herself out there in a way that we know medicinally she doesn't really do.
Something I want to, there's a parallel case that I want to talk about in a second, but I do want to say on the Dr. Al-Hashimi neurology front, we did get some diagnoses from people. And I said in a previous episode that I would save that for last in case people thought those were spoilers. We had a pretty convincing answer, I think, as to what is going on with her. But in case people don't want to know, we're going to touch that last.
Sounds good.
But in terms of this idea of presenting realities of a case to someone, I think that's more, I mean, I think what you're saying is right, but there's also this like, what are the sort of brutal realities for Howard inside of his case here? And we'll come back to Howard, which seems to be like a real centerpiece case for this episode and perhaps a couple more going forward. But the Jackson family, I was really struck by, right? Because, you know, they get to have this conversation with a woman whose daughter went through what Jackson seems to be going through, which is like in your early 20s, an emergence of schizophrenia or bipolar.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple of friends with bipolar, and I will say that like growing up, I thought like a bipolar diagnosis meant like, you know, you could not function. And that is deeply untrue for my friends who are on great medication for it. But this dose of reality where this woman is talking about her daughter, and she says she was studying architecture. Now she's a cashier at Giant Eagle and living at home, and it's struggle, but there's also laughter and love. But I just like really love that because she's presenting it as a like, this isn't the end of the road for your son. There is like there's a future for him. There's a future for you as a family. Mm-hmm. But the fact that like he's in law school, like perhaps that is not, these are the realities of this diagnosis, which is not, it's over, but it's like, but here is the real path going forward. For sure. You know? And as someone who is not a doctor and definitely not a mental health professional, if listeners disagree with that, please let us know. But I thought that was like a really, and you know, that's true for Howard. Here are the realities of what a surgery would look like for you. Here's the reality of what this medication, this procedure for the blindness in the eye looks like. Of like, we have a solution going forward. It's not an easy one. It's not a miracle save.
Yes.
Roxie. It's not, you know, what are we going to do for Roxie? What can we do for Roxie? And I just thought that was like an interesting refracted storyline across these various cases.
I think especially with this one with Jackson's parents. And Nicole, the woman you're talking about who's brought in to like consult with them.
Right.
Bring something to the table that no one in the pit can, which is, yes, these doctors and these student doctors and these nurses can tell you about care or what happens if it's this diagnosis or that, or kind of like broad strokes what the future might look like.
Right.
What they can't tell you is like, what does it feel like when this happens to your family?
Right.
And so having someone who can speak so specifically to that, which is ultimately what they're wondering in that moment, even if they don't fully realize it's what they're wondering in that moment, I thought was just like a great way to kind of proactively answer a lot of their questions. And like bring something to the table that like Javadi is just not going to be able to do.
Bless. No. And like in conjunction with, I you know, something in the pit, we've talked about this before, the pit is always trying to educate us on various things. As the younger doctors there are being educated, we at home are being educated. And so last week in the case of Ilana, the sexual assault survivor, what are the outside resources? And similarly in this episode, when we get a Baby Jane Doe update, the guy from PEDS is like, have you tried CYF, I think is the acronym, right? So like, these are like, what can we do here in the hospital? And then who are the people that we can pull in with very specific, you know, a specific kind of resource that helps outside of the diagnosis, the medication, the, you know, procedure, the et cetera, et cetera.
Completely.
And I love the pit for that. I think it's great.
I mean, it's such a bigger network than I think even a lot of us realize.
Oh, definitely.
And so the thing that the pit does well is not even just outside the hospital, but within the hospital, right? The difference between the ED and PEDS is like there's a moat there as far as like, how do we get Baby Jane Doe into a room and laying out that like she's too healthy to be admitted as like a sick baby, but also risks infecting the other babies, but also there's no parent to take her home right now. And so like what do you do with that quagmire? Obviously worth digging into. Sounds like the answer is she's just going to hang out for a while.
The entire season.
Seems like.
Probably. In terms of like what I told you, I wrote in my notes, panic at the discharge. Like we've got Joy crushing it, Antoine and Larry trying to rise to the occasion, doing their best. But I love this for them. Like these are Antoine and Larry, the like med techs have been around in the background both seasons. And here's like a moment for them to just sort of like be a bit more front and center. I love how annoyed Jesse specifically is with them. And I looked up how old the actor played Jesse is, 47. So I feel like he is someone who could have, you know, like you've got Abbott and Al-Hashimi and Robbie and Dana who are all like, we used to do this with paper. We know how to do this. And I think Jesse is in that demo as well, where he's like, let's get it together, guys. Of the like, here's how we're going to handle this. And there's a lot that like this form goes here and these clipboards go here, that like most medical jargon on the show, I'm just going to let wash over me. It's not my job to know what the abbreviation for psych is or whatever it is on the board.
The fourth clipboard rack, I simply couldn't tell you.
I cannot. When they were asking about the medication and Robbie's like, Megan Nord, clinical pharmacist. And she's like, we got you. Like a real like Captain America, we got your back moment. That was bizarre to me.
A goofy ass moment even for the Pitt.
I agree.
Why is she off in the distance? Like,
It's so weird.
Can she not get a medium shot?
Right.
You know, it's like every time they talk to her, she's across the room for some reason.
Your back.
Yeah.
Really good. Princess panicking, Princess being put in charge because Dana's stuck in the room, right? And Princess is like, I did not ask for this.
No one wants Princess to be the charge nurse less than Princess.
Absolutely.
And we support her.
Our listener, Jennifer, who works at emergency management for an undisclosed city, was talking about the realities of planning for cybersecurity and how oftentimes that this is an increasing part of emergency management planning, which is not something I really fully understood exists. What Jennifer says laments in her email, nobody knows that my job exists. But that most of the cybersecurity incidents are about sort of the tech side of it and not this analog side of it. So she said that she said last December we did a cybersecurity focused drill in our emergency operations center with a similar premise. I was the one pulling out whiteboards and reminding folks that they could still use offline versions of things like Word and save them on an individual computer. This is our first time really trying that type of scenario. And the younger folks who are very technology dependent were definitely lost. This is a highly realistic gap for them to be covering on the show. And I love seeing it. So I love the idea of like across the country, drills like this are being run.
Oh, yeah.
And the generational divide is just like widening like crazy.
We hear from so many medical professionals who have been through cyber attacks at their hospitals, who are actively going through them right now as the show is going on. It's like insane that this is just like a fact of life in this line of work. And also we should say, like, in particular, we don't know the source of all this, the origin. Maybe we'll never know. Maybe it's not really relevant to the show.
Right.
But the like ransomware attacks on hospitals, just like fucking diabolical scum of the earth shit.
Absolutely.
Like even if the only result is that the hospital becomes less efficient that day, that will cause people to die. That will have like massive repercussions. So like just really gross.
Absolutely. How did you feel about the way in which the sort of Santos Al-Hashimi AI check-in was handled inside of this episode?
I like that Al-Hashimi is not just like caught off guard, that she's one of the people who understands how to go to an analog system. Like that adaptability, I think, is important. Otherwise, she's just a spokesperson for AI.
Right.
So Santos gets her barb in.
Yeah.
Al-Hashimi has to eat shit a little bit.
Right.
And then
Robbie smirks.
Yeah, Robbie smirks. Everyone gets their moment. And now let me tell you about this weird pronged clipboard system in which you either pick from these cartoons or those cartoons.
Yeah. Makes sense. All right, let's talk about Howard. So Craig Shannock is the actor who is playing Howard here.
I thought he was great too.
I thought he was so good.
Yeah.
I've got two actors to call out in this episode, and he's one of them. And like, I just thought this was like incredibly well done, with the exception of, again, I think Ogilvie is being asked to be just demented levels of nasty.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, walk me through that, because I thought this episode gave him a slightly different kind of cover, if that makes sense. He just seems so oblivious to the effects that his words have on other people and like how blunt he's being, in a way that some people are, right? Like there's a reasonable explanation for these things in some cases. And it's like him bringing up the zoo is not intended to be like a shot at Howard. It's like, oh, I read about this and I thought it was important to this conversation. Like the fact that he's almost naive is the wrong word, but like doesn't understand how blunt he's being, I think puts him in a slightly different space than maybe like, fuck Louis, that guy's an alcoholic and he died, you know?
I guess, but like, as you highlighted before, there's this weird contradiction inside of his character where like sometimes he has social awareness and social skills. And
It's
then
true.
Sometimes when it comes to the caretaking of more vulnerable patients, he's just like vicious.
Oh, for sure.
You know? I did think it was interesting to have Dr. McKay involved in this case, because last season, Dr. Collins sort of called out Dr. McKay about some, unexamined fat phobia inside of her treatment of a patient. So for McKay to be the one sort of like taking that lesson and passing it on to Ogilvie, I thought was like a good thread across seasons. But I I think this performance is incredible. Obviously, fat phobia is a thing that exists inside of the medical world. It's a really important thing to talk about. Even Garcia is like this sidebar conversations that they're having.
Yeah.
Like Garcia, who's one of the like most blunt people, is like treating this conversation with sensitivity,
yes, absolutely.
which I thought was really, really interesting.
I think that part of it with Ogilvie is so important too. It's like literally every doctor in the room is saying, you can't do this.
Right.
Like regardless of what you're aware of or not, like you can't do it.
Yeah.
It's just like point blank, it's not acceptable.
Right.
And so that then like it is a learning moment, I think, for Ogilvie. We can hope. But yeah, you're right. Like even Garcia's like the frank truths of like the almost like 50-50 proposition of what surgery would mean.
Exactly.
And kind of going beat by beat through this episode with Howard. And most of these doctors who are in this room are spending almost the whole episode with him. Like that's like an incredible amount of focus from what we usually see on the Pitt.
And the roster of who's in the room.
Completely.
It has Robbie's focus for almost the entire episode.
And it's all about like what is different about Howard's circumstances, and how he got here is a crucial part of that formula, and him laying out like, this wasn't a thing that happened overnight. Like this is a life story that brings you into these room on these terms. And then how that affects like he can't flip over like a normal patient, and that creates risk, right? Like he can't go into their CT machine. That creates complications. And so they're just constantly having to come up with workarounds. And I think what I'm most interested in is the way that Howard and that actor plays that. Like it's almost like he has tears in his eyes the whole episode.
Because of the shame.
That's what I'm saying. It's not just the pain, but like he's constantly apologizing and embarrassed, and the shame of that.
And we've talked about this before, how the Pitt has done a really good job with this examination of shame and how it can keep people from getting the help that they need in the first place.
For sure.
And how people wind up in the ED because they've let it go to a certain point because of the shame. And so for, again, this performance of this constant apologizing and, just like, and then again, Dr. Robbie's best version of his bedside manner coming through, and his like reassurance and like, this is what we do. We got you, we can handle it. Abbott being like, let's go. Like, we're going to go on a road trip. Like, I just think that I'm really interested to see how this case develops.
At the risk of being glib about the road trip, Howard is a natural with the speak and spell iPad situation, like on it, cracking jokes, doing the whole thing. Why is there a road trip button on the iPad?
Here's my question.
Okay.
In all caps in my notes, it says, excuse me, where was this machine for Harlow?
I had the exact same thought.
I lost my... Here's the thing. I understand what the Pitt is trying to do with Harlow, and I saw some there's been some really good content going around of people who have experienced what Harlow has experienced inside of various institutions. And so they're highlighting a real problem and a real flaw in the system. And I think that is important. I think it's tough to have in the same episode the resolution of the Harlow case next to the very device that could have saved her literal hours inside of the ED. I'm baffled by this, honestly.
It's not ideal. It's not the most respectful. And if the Pitt had wanted to engage with like, Harlow is clearly fluent in ASL, but like the reading and writing would be difficult for whatever reason. Like that's something that we've gotten lots of emails about, lots of comments about, like that you can't just assume clear translation from ASL to English. It's not the same thing in any capacity. That's not what the show is doing.
Right.
Clearly, she's able to read Santos's note. And so one of two things needed to happen. Santos needed to sit in the room and actually write down back and forth with Harlow what's happening, or bust out the iPad, which could have saved this woman so much time and so much pain.
That being said, how called out did you feel? I mean, I know you've got excellent posture, but how called out did you feel by...
Oh, no.
This is how I use my laptop as I work from home, and I'm on the laptop all the time, and my head's constantly bowed down, and this is an issue for me. How did you feel about that?
I am not prepared to answer the question of how many hours are you at your laptop at this time.
Okay. Here's my question. Where do we get one of those trigger point injections?
Would love it.
Yeah.
Can we just get a guy, someone in the Spotify offices, just when you walk in every day? Shoot me up.
But apparently, apparently, it like the effects will last months.
Amazing.
Great. Give us like a quarterly injection in the trigger point to help us with our tech neck. I would appreciate it.
Seriously. Can we talk about Roxie?
I was just about to say. This is the other actor I want to call out.
Yeah, I mean, a plot line that's just been returning and returning and returning and keeps paying off in all kinds of ways. I think one of the moments in this episode that like really and truly broke me
I cried.
is the way that Shabana Aziz delivers when they're talking about who's getting ice cream and who's allowed to have ice cream. The question of like, is Roxie allowed to have ice cream? She can have anything she wants. And it's like, again, just like the look on Shabana Aziz's face as Javadi in this moment is like, my stomach just dropped completely as she said it. And she exchanged like the briefest look with Roxie afterwards. And I think one of the reasons this worked for me is the Pitt works so well as drama because every time they walk into a room, some people usually know what's going on and some people don't. Mm. And usually it's the doctors and the nurses are like, we know what this is immediately. We've got to treat it. We've got to jump into action. The patients are constantly asking questions.
Right.
This is one of those cases where like Roxie knows and everyone else in her family either doesn't know or doesn't want to accept it. And the way that kind of positions her with the doctors, I just find to be like one of the richest storylines of this season.
I both really agree and also with a side of slight disagreement, which is another actor I want to call out is John Getz, who is playing her father, Lloyd. And this is just an actor who I have seen in a million things. He's in Social Network, Zodiac.
Blood Simple.
Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, which I've seen 1 million times. This is a Bay Area. He's like a San Francisco Bay Area character actor, like legend, right? So he shows up and I'm like, oh shit, right? Like this is a casting spoiler for me. And like, just even inside of this episode, the looks that he exchanges with her.
It's true.
I'm going to cry right now. There's like one look that they exchange. And then when they say they're going to take the kids for ice cream, there's a shot. You don't even see his face. You just see Roxie looking at him. Mm-hmm. And they just exchange a look for a while. And it's just sort of like, I know. Ugh. And like the devastation, I burst into tears. The devastation of, watching your child, there was like, I've been feeling quite emotional about this plot line with the kids in the first place, and especially the 15-year-old, like especially the 15-year-old. It's been like really, he's like, I don't want to go for ice cream. Like, I don't, so like he knows something's up,
for
right?
Sure.
He doesn't have all the information, but her dad really felt like he knows exactly what this is, which is goodbye. And that just like, it really hurt my feelings. It was really, really, really tough. Yeah.
And it's just like such a slightly different frame of something we have seen on the Pitt, right? Which is we've seen parents say goodbye to their teenage children.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Of like they had their whole life ahead of them. And that's a very particular kind of grief. And I mean, that
or
was,
like even younger children.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Younger children, like young kids and babies even in some instances. And here it's like, it hits, it's not even like harder or anything like that. It just hits in a different way when it's like, Roxie's supposed to have kind of her life on course, right? Like she has her family, she has her life, she has her kids. Now it's just like the living. And even that is being kind of robbed from her.
I'm not supposed to outlive this.
I know.
Yeah. The doctrine of double effect, which Robbie brings up when McKay and Victoria are asking about this ethical principle of palliative care. Once again, this is the more you know moment from the Pitt, but like I did not know about this and I thought it was like really and again, this is like a really good Robbie episode. Like the way that Noah Wyle delivers this information, this idea of like, we're going to treat the pain.
Yeah.
And if in treating the pain, the patient dies, he says like, sometimes that's the best thing that can happen, right? I think this storyline is, this is like what, our 3rd episode with Roxie, something like that?
I think so.
The storyline is being like parceled out in a really impactful, important way. And again, really like a real education for people at home. Mm-hmm. Any thoughts you have on this?
I think especially for the contrast with almost everything else that comes through the ED, which is most of the cases, if they're like really critical cases, it's how do we keep this person alive?
Yeah.
And just even the introduction of the idea that like, there are things that are worse than death, right? Like there are outcomes here that are worse and more painful for everybody involved. And it's something that obviously, if you work in medicine, you know that it's always fascinating to me. Like there've been all these surveys done of doctors who like almost like overwhelmingly, a lot of people who work in medicine do not like, they want DNRs on their medical record. They do not want to be kept alive in certain states of being.
Yeah.
And I think it's just like you've seen so much of not even Roxie's case, but even other kinds of ones in which people are shells of themselves. And Roxie is feeling that in like slow motion almost as she's losing mobility, as she's losing agency. And so it's really not a question of how this ends for her. I think almost like, again, some of the people involved clearly know where it's headed. She clearly knows where it's headed. It's just about the how. And how much they listened to her along the way, and kind of what dignity she's afforded in the way that across the ED right now, we see doctors like trying to approach their patients with that sort of respect.
That was very beautifully said. That brings me to the wrap up of Ilana's story, right? So,
I mean, this is the other moment.
Yeah. We've been asking for Emma to have like something a bit more to do, and we were not privy to whatever conversation she had with Ilana to get her back in the room. But Ilana saying like she's a good nurse. Yeah. And Dana being like she's learning, but like, I'm curious what that conversation was, and it feels like something a bit more substantive than what we've seen from Emma so far. Why are you?
I'm going through the mental gymnastics of, I don't know if I've ever felt this for a TV character before. I'm proud of Emma. I don't know Emma. She's not even a real person. But it's like, because we had been only seeing her be introduced to new things on the job on her first day here in the pit, even just knowing that she did that well, even seeing just like the way she leaves the room, which is not just like, now it's your time to move on, but this kind of like parting note she has with Ilana. Yeah. I can't help but be proud of her in a way. I don't know. It's a weird thing to say about a fictional character, but here I am.
I think that's lovely. Dana's proud of her too.
Yeah.
We got a lot of emails from listeners talking about their experiences through something like this on one side or another of the process. I did want to read, I'm not going to use anyone's name here, but I did want to read a part of one of the emails we got that says, Joe mentioned how long and invasive the FRE seems on the pit, and I want to let both of you know that the pit actually softens how long and invasive it actually is. They can last hours. So seeing Dana get through so much of the examination in less than an hour was a bit of a fairy tale. So like, for dramatic purposes or whatever, the pit is like, we're not going to do this for 4 episodes. We're going to do this for like 1 and a bit. Ilana coming back in, Ilana rejecting the plan B, but getting all like us hearing like all the things that she's going to have to do, the medications that she's going to have to go through to take care of herself for this thing that was done to her is a huge part of it. And of course, Dana's absolute explosion in finding out that the previous kit that she put to be picked up was not picked up, and then showing the cop out on the phone.
That's kind of the counterpoint to like, this is in a lot of ways the best version of this process, not just in terms of like the expedited process you're talking about for what can be so much more drawn out and so much more invasive and traumatic, but even just like having someone like Dana in the first place, which like I'm glad you were here today. I mean, just fucking shut me down right there. Yeah. But the chaser for that being, all of this went in this moment as well as you can ask for the worst day of your life. And now you go to the refrigerator and they didn't even pick up the last one. And it's like, it's a huge gut punch. And obviously you understand Dana's fury, but it's just like, even when the person involved does all the right things, theoretically, like the systems are still fucked, right? Like whether that's this one in particular or the larger things we talk about every week with this show, as far as like who is allowed in, who's not, who's paying for what and how, like everything is messed up. And so like all you can do is try to be Dana in this moment. And even then like Dana isn't failing, but the system is failing. People like Ilana, if not her.
I think the thing that underlines a lot of what you're talking about in terms of the doctors and their interactions with patients comes, they said the thing inside of Samira's interaction with this guy, George, who's come in for this test. And he's like, confesses like, actually, I didn't even have the thinly veiled excuse I usually use to come in. I just kind of wanted to see you and talk to you. And he talks about how she's encouraged him to get out. He's like, I've joined.
Yes.
What is it? Lawn bowling?
I think it was lawn bowling.
Lawn bowling. Great. Community matters. That's what is said here. And this idea that like, for so many of these people, for a George or for a Louis who like, our guy Digby disappears for a while because he goes in to visit with Louis. Like there are certain people who don't have the community that Roxie has around her inside of this episode, that Jackson has inside of this episode. So like this is a thing that the Doctors of the Pit do as well, which is be the community for the lonely. Howard's like, I have an estranged sister that I don't talk to, and that's it. And so he's like out here on a raft by himself inside of this experience. So for Abbott to like turn on the buddy charm for him is like a huge thing that these doctors do that is above and beyond the simple diagnosis thing
completely.
that they do.
I mean, the emotional labor in this kind of work is just off the charts. And that's in addition to again, the precision they have to work with in terms of their medicine and the urgency with which they have to treat these patients. Like, it's fair and completely within bounds that the Pitt is constantly preoccupied with, like, who in this ER has PTSD at a given time and who's flaring up? Because it's like, how could you not, frankly?
With all the things you're holding.
Everything you're holding together.
Yeah. Samira, you mentioned that she and Al-Hashimi have like a sort of where is my career going conversation inside of a very busy day that you were very skeptical of.
It felt like it could have waited till tomorrow.
People do take breaks. Like, for all the Whitakers, like, there are no breaks here. Like, Langdon's in the break room. Like, people are in the break room. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely take the break. But I don't know if you're this way, but like, we have low stakes, meaningless work in the grand scheme of things.
We really do.
When I'm ready for break time, I'm like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I want to sit here and sip my icy beverage, a crispy Diet Coke.
Yeah.
Don't it can wait. Whatever you got going on, it can wait.
Put those boundaries up around you, Rob. But I also
that's me when I get home. I got you. After a 3-pod day. Again, our life is very hard.
Yeah, please don't talk to me. I will not be talking to you.
I simply will not.
I woke up this morning, my throat hurt so much, and I was like, why? And I was like, oh, maybe 5 hours of yammering into a microphone yesterday was ill-advised. Possibly.
We'll get you checked out. We'll get Dr. Mohan in here post-haste.
Thanks so much. She mentions that she had been part of a study about racial disparity in healthcare. Mm-hmm. We saw this in season 1 with the sickle cell patient, right? That Samira was like, hey, wait a minute, et cetera. We get a dig in at the Trump White House. You love to see it.
This is where I wish we had the capacity for this pod to do like a graphic across the bottom of the screen for living out with the Pitt.
Yeah, living out with the Pitt, baby.
Some rainbows, some shooting stars.
So Al-Hashimi's like, geriatric medicine.
Yeah.
Why not?
I did think this came like a little too close on the tail.
I agree.
Of her comforting the previous patient.
Guess what? We got a lot to do.
We do. We got to keep it moving.
There's only so many hours in the day.
I did want to talk about Javadi and Ogilvie joining forces for the first time. We're not so different, you and I.
Sure.
For one, I just really appreciate the way that them despising each other has led to shockingly good patter and good choreography of these scenes. The way in which they just kind of like wordlessly go their separate ways. Mm-hmm. I just think like they play incredibly well for a character I like and hate in Ogilvie.
There was a good comedy bit when they sort of bust into the Jaquie tongue room, right? Where
don't go in the tongue room.
Yeah. The Jaquie tongue room is not where you want to go. But they sort of like bop their heads in, like they're the Three Stooges or something like that. And then like also Joy like looks over and she's like, what the hell is going on?
This is what I'm saying. Like it just kind of works with them.
It was like puppies in a basket energy. Yeah,
in part, I mean, clearly they're aligned as like know-it-alls who are stumped by this weird case. And I gotta say, of all the things we've seen in the Pit, this is fucking wild, Joe.
The full body blister?
The full body blister margarita burn. Mm-hmm. I mean, one, as somebody who I appreciate a margarita. Also, if this happened to me, I would be so convinced I was dying. The idea that this is just like you squeeze limes in the sun. Unreal.
For first chilaquiles and now margaritas are sort of catching strays from the Pit. Really tough, I think. Look, I'm here to defend margaritas.
Of course. Even just limes. Like,
do you have a margarita recipe?
I actually don't. I don't do a lot of making them myself. I'm more of like if you're going to make something at home, more of a sangria kind of situation.
Okay.
But let's have it.
My Aunt Sarah taught me 3-2-1. Mm-hmm. 3 parts tequila.
Of course.
Obviously. 2 parts triple sec or some kind of orange liqueur, and then 1 part freshly squozen lime juice.
Freshly what?
Squozen. And then you gotta salt the rim. No chemical margarita mix in
you don't want a vat of anything involved.
I really don't. But that's the vibe.
But I loved this little side quest. And I love the fact that Joy solves it.
I just asked a question.
Literally, like, you nerds were out here talking about fringe cases. Why didn't you just have one conversation with this guy?
All right. Diagnosis spoiler corner. If you do not want some medical professionals' ideas of what's going on with Dr. Al-Hashimi, now's the time to go. Bye.
To be fair, I don't even know that it required medical professionals. I feel like this is one of those, like, the breadcrumbs are so strong. When she's discussing last week, Al-Hashimi and Abbott, about...
Oh, I don't think it's that.
Oh, you don't think it's that?
Yeah, but you tell me what you think.
Well, I feel like the lines are being drawn pretty strongly off of that exchange alone. This idea that she was working in this maternity ward in Kabul. Mm-hmm. Like, there's real life evidence that maternity ward, or one similar to it, was the like focus of a targeted terror attack.
Literally that one,
A literal terror attack.
Yes.
And so the idea that she would have, in her own way, like a form of PTSD associated with, like, we see her zone out for the first time when she hovers over baby Jane Doe, like that would be kind of tying into whatever she's experiencing and getting treatment for.
Okay, a stress trigger. So the diagnosis seems to be absence seizures, which were once upon a time called petit mal seizures, but now are more accurately called absence seizures. This is a description of them. The person suddenly stops all activity without any warning. It may look like he or she is staring off into space or just has a blank look. The eyes may turn upward as the eyelids flutter. The seizure usually lasts less than 10 to 20 seconds. The person may be momentarily confused for only a few seconds, but then is back to normal. It happens a lot in children, not very often in adults. It's genetic, but in adults can be triggered by stress.
Okay.
So it could be related to PTSD,
Sure.
like onset by PTSD.
Yes.
The fact that she's had a couple today, I think is real. So it could be the PTSD of Baby Jane Doe, like sending her back to this traumatic thing that happened to her. I don't think the traumatic thing is the inciting incident for this particular case, but that thinking about it could trigger this inside of her, and then just the stress of the day. So is the question, can someone with this condition, even if she's being medicated for it and getting treated for it, can she handle the ED, the ER, you know? And so I don't know the answer to that because I am not a doctor. So, you know, drcybanks@gmail.com. But like, I wouldn't be surprised if it's connected to that, but I don't think it's as simple as this is PTSD. It's a very specific like medical condition.
I think the PTSD elements are interesting to me because there's so much overlap with everyone else who works in the pit. And so if you're trying to figure out like, what do these people have in common? How can Dr. Lashimi feel more connected to everyone who went through Pitt Fest, to Robbie himself? Like being able to share in the burdens of this kind of work, even if it is tapped into something very specific that she went through with Doctors Without Borders, that's like interesting storytelling fodder for me. But it's also interesting if it is something genetic and unavoidable that is like endemic to her, right? Something that she is bringing to the table that no other doctor is.
That the harsh reality of it, given like all the harsh medical realities, is like limiting to her ability to practice this kind of medicine.
Exactly.
Which I never want to be, I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to tell her, but like, I never want to be someone who says, you can't do this, you're not suited for this. But that is something that the pit is just sometimes like, these are the realities of this medical condition.
It's not even in a judgmental way. It's just like, this may not be it for you in the same way that it might not be it for some medical students who come through. It's like, you're suited for it or you're not. And I think there were enough early nods too from Robbie as far as the environment she was coming from, Dr. Lashimi at the VA was not an equivalent situation, was not a surgical context for one. And so the idea that she's coming into something completely new, that she's being like, you know, stretched in a way that she's not necessarily used to.
And a little hazed by Robbie.
Clearly.
Yeah.
And so this has been a terrible initiation for Dr. Lashimi, an incredibly stressful environment, but it's also something that it seems like she's figuring out if she's cut out for this or not.
Well, that's this episode of The Pit.
We did it.
Thank you so much. We will see folks for the industry finale later next week.
Can't believe it. Meanwhile, the Pit finale,
so much
August,
months away, years away
December?
from now. We'll be there for a while. No cliffhanger really this week. Just Dana and Robbie regarding the chaos.
You know what though? I did love the chaos.
Yeah.
One of those things that's like harder to shoot than you think.
Oh yeah. It's a lot
very
of choreography.
Naturally go freak out about printer paper.
Yeah.
I don't think actors are usually very good at that, but I like this one a lot.
John Cameron is the director of this episode. He directed Fargo, Legion, and Xena Warrior Princess and Hercules. So he's been at it for a while. Shout out the 90s. All right. We'll see you soon. Bye.